Tatiana, welcome to Hotspots Live. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me.
Now, for those of you who may not know, Ms. Williams is the Executive Director of TransInclusive Group and Testing and Community Mobilization Coordinator for the Pride Center at Equality Park. Now, Tatiana, we've asked you to have a discussion with us today about Black Lives Matter and in particular, how the movement relates to Black transgender lives.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, I feel that we have to take into account that before we were transgender, we were Black individuals first. And I want to dive directly into this because I thought maybe we was going to get a little bit deeper and I would have been able to get into this a little bit later in the conversation. But I want to dive into it now. So we speak about Black Lives Matter and we speak about the most vulnerable community that's out there. And people like to say that the Black man life is not valued, which is one of the things that drove the movement with the Black Lives Matters, with the murders of the policemen and et cetera, and being disproportionately impacted. So when you think about the Black trans woman, and when you think about her experience in her pre-transition, in her life not being valued, we have to really take into account. So when she transitioned, if her life wasn't valued pre-transition before, just imagine what she's going through now. So it's double impacted. So when it comes to the trans community, I'm connected to the people. I'm rooted with the community. And some of our people within the LGBTQ community does not feel that Black Lives Matter is a full representation of all demographics within the population. When you think about the murders of Black trans women, when you think about Tony McDade that was recently murdered in Tallahassee, and there's little talk about it, little visibility about it. However, we are moving the movement, with the Black lives, and we're speaking to George Floyd, but we're not uplifting what's happening with the other people within the community as it relates to Black lives. And that's what's happening in the community.
How can we change that?
I think we have to be intentional in the work that we do. A lot of people, I like to say this. I tell people are afraid of what they don't know, and they're afraid of what they don't understand. And people feel as if they're uplifting a particular community, that means that it's taking away from them, because this goes back into religion. There's so many layers that people just disregard and feel that we, in the LGBT community, don't deserve the proper respect. And I think that comes with the education. And when you look at the climate of what our political system looks like, and I think all of it plays roles when it comes to us trying to get not just equality, but equity.
Yes, of course. That's an excellent answer. This is going very well. What advice would you give your siblings who are Black and transgender or non-binary and may feel that they're not welcome in the larger Black Lives Matter movement?
I have to say, someone that transitioned over 30 years ago, you have to keep the faith. You have to understand what that looks like, and you have to stay rooted within yourself. And this is where that extended family comes from. We are here for you to lean on us. We are here to support one another to get us through those trying times. You have to continue to believe in what you believe in, find that support system, and do what it is that you feel that you want to do unapologetically. Because what I can assure you, times have definitely changed. We may not be there, but I have seen things change over the years. So it may take a minute, and this new generation want things to happen immediately. That's not always the case. And one day will come and we will see it. And maybe if we don't see it, somebody that comes behind us will be able to experience that.
That is so amazing. Okay, so I want to say something really quickly, right? My former roommate was 85 years old. He's still alive.
Oh, wow, great.
He was saying to me about, we were watching returns when we thought Hillary Clinton was going to be the next president. And hours went by and it didn't happen. And he was so heartbroken over it. But he always said to me, he said, you know something, Shawn? There's something greater on the horizon. We have to hold steady. We have to hold firm in our belief that it will happen. All right, next question for you. Do you have any practical best practices you can share with Black transgender women who regard themselves in regarding keeping themselves safe? I'm sorry.
I'll say this within our community. I
Mhm.
understand, and I am one. And I like to tell people before I got there, I was them.
Yes.
So the reason why I'm so rooted to the work because I understand what that lifestyle looks like. I understand what safety looks like.
Yes.
And I came from a place that I was able to change what that looked like. I don't have a blueprint of what that looks like, but what I will say is that we have to utilize the systems and things that are in place to kind of to move away from whatever that looks like. And that's easier said than done, which is why we in the community trans-led organizations try to put things in place so we can help our siblings improve their quality of life. And that may look like job readiness. That may look like helping them get their GEDs, because we have to figure out a way. And you have to be cognizant of people that you are meeting, even with intimate partner violence, which is something that I have experienced. So I had to figure out, is this, when it comes to my safety, is this what you want in the long term? Once the individual hit me one time, I knew it was coming. So you have to have that self-esteem and you have to have that self-respect, which is easier said than done. But when you come to some of these spaces that we have created, which is why it's important that organizations and funders fund organizations like Trans Inclusive Group, Ariana Center, Trans Social, because we need
Yes.
funding in order to improve the quality of lives for our siblings.
Now, your organization, which is TransInclusive Group, welcomes all members under the transgender non-conforming spectrum. Now, regardless of race, sexual orientation, or gender identity, what kinds of intersectional issues does your group talk about?
Well, we go from politics to
Yes.
voting, and we speak about racism. And interesting you would say that, because within our organization, we had a hard time in the beginning speaking about racism, speaking about, Black and brown communities, and specifically with the white members would be in the meeting, because we welcome all, and some of them was taking it as an attack. And it's not, we wouldn't even set up a program to attack anyone, but we have to bring awareness to the issues that are happening, and they have to understand that there are some privilege that are afforded to others that are not, when we are trying to access and navigate systems. So we speak to voting, we speak to politics, we speak to healthcare, we speak to everything in those intersections with our larger community, which is why it's important that we start to bridge that gap. And moving in 2020, that was our goal, to intersect the work. So when we're having these conversations on a larger scale, that we're bringing in the community so they can understand who we are, what we represent, and we are more alike than not. Your sexual orientation, your gender identity has nothing to do with us trying to navigate in society. So intersection work is important.
Yes, of course. How often do you meet, and where do you meet?
We meet every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And the last Thursdays of each month is open to allies just like yourself. And you can come into the space so you can also learn. You can be educated on certain things that you may not be aware of, or you just may not have no understanding. We open that space up for community members to get a true understanding. There is no crazy question or a question that I don't feel this is the right time to ask this question. You can ask us anything. And we meet at the Pride Center at Equality Park, 2040 North Dixie Highway, in the back building. That's where the
wait. All right, so I want to ask you this. I want to say this, that I have plenty of white friends whom mean very well, but they want to be productive allies. If I could give them a list of 3 of the most important steps that they can actively take to help end systemic racism, what would those be, in your opinion? What would those 3 steps be?
What I would say to them is, before you can fix a problem, you have to recognize that there is a problem, right? And as I spoke earlier in regards to privileges that you have that you don't ask for, you just have them. And we all have privileges, including myself. But we have to understand, when we're in spaces and we have that privilege, what releasing that privilege looks like. And I would say that's the first thing, using your privilege to access this marginalized, disproportionately population, using that. And you can use that in so many different ways. And the one thing that I would say that's really most important is we need financial equity. You know, I see a lot of, and not to say your terms, white men, you know, in these white-led organizations, and white men funders that have access to this funding, that they can leverage that, you know, and support organizations that are doing the work like within the LGBT community, and specifically for Black and brown communities. And we're talking about Black trans women being murdered, or the Black trans community being disproportionately impacted, and intentionally donating to that work. Also, I would have to say, speak with your white friends. You know, you're going to be in those spaces. You're going to have the abilities to connect to them more than I can, or I may not have the access. So educating them to help them and bring them along, because the more of you that are supporting the work that we are doing, the better we will be as a community. And that way we can uplift what we're doing within the community. And that's in return, that's going to bring that visibility and that inclusion that is needed. Because so often we get confused with the diversity and the inclusion, because diversity is having you in the room, Shawn, but inclusion is when Shawn has a voice in the room and able to be part of what that change look like. So using that privilege, I feel, is very important. Speaking out to your friends and financially supporting us.
This was the most invigorating conversation I've had the pleasure of having. Thank you so much. I have one more remark. Thank you for spending time with us. I know this is on your lunch hour. I want to end with some words of encouragement, just uplifting words. All of this has been encouraging for me, but I want to give you the last word.
What I would say to our community is keep the faith. It will happen. Let's move in solidarity. This is not about self, this is about us. Whatever we can do, we need to set our differences aside, and we need to be involved in this movement, because we need to create, we need to make space, and we need to bring about change in our community. Definitely get out there and vote. Use your privileges, use the things that you have that can uplift, mobilize, and move us as a community. You will get there. I promise you. I wasn't in a space that I'm in now 30 years ago, and I had to keep the faith, and I had to work at it. If you work at it, I promise it will pay off.
Thank you, Ms. Williams, the Executive Director of TransInclusive Group. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And listen, Thursdays? Yes, tell us again where we meet.
At the Pride Center, Equality Park, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And if we're still doing Zoom meetings, we post it on the TransInclusive-Page, and you can come in on the last Thursday of each month. We'll post the link, and then you can come in. So either way, we'll always make sure that you have access and your viewers have access. And if you want to donate to TransInclusive, go to tigfl.org, and you can find us there and information as well.
I love you. Have a fabulous day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.